Hello everyone, Antibeta1M here. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm going to talk a little bit about the experiences that I had at university level and in my education before university even. And I linked this to a Facebook post probably where I outline in writing the different subjects that I studied and how useful I believe they are in relative terms. So this will be useful if you're contemplating studying at university or thinking what your passions are in life or where you want to go and how useful you are finding life educations in general. I believe that university achieves about 50% of its goal of making people essentially good people or turning out people who are graduates who are essentially good people. It achieves that about 50%. So we can do a lot better, I have to say. Now let me go over my objectives for education. I believe that education should have three primary objectives, and this is what I believe. Well, number one, education should mitigate fears with reasoning, context, and truth. So the world is a very big world, and if we didn't know what happened in it, we would be utterly confused, like many non-human animals are confused. Now, I'm not looking down on non-human animals, of course. The objective of someone who is educated is to look after those animals. But obviously, when you don't have context to what's going on, and when you can't reason things and find the truth of things, you are a very lost soul. Number two objective of education, to identify true problems in the world as opposed to mere individual passions. So, when we learn about the nature of the world and how it operates, we can determine how to cultivate that world, how to influence it, and how to make it a better place. Now, this is opposed to individual passions because I'm starting to look down on individual passions such as art and music. Now, whilst they are very good for the soul and they're very good for making people happy, they are not things that that will change the world for the better, and that's what we really need people to do. If you're living life on this planet, you have a debt to pay to the planet, and if you're using it just to fuck around with, art and music, you are not contributing to society enough, in my opinion. Now, the third objective of education, I believe, is to allow you to think independently for yourself, especially in practical terms. So it's very related to number one, obviously, with the sense that once we get context on things and once we get the knowledge on things, we can then operate much more and function much better in the real world. And we'll also not be allowed ourselves to be bullshitted about certain things like, history and what the government wants us to believe, or what corporations want us to believe, or advertising, etc. So we can somewhat mitigate and address and sort of sanitize those elements of society which are so detrimental to our mindsets and what we really want to believe. So I've got a whole list of things that I studied at university, and I'm going to go through just a few of them here. Some of the most popular and sort of prestigious subjects I'll probably address in this particular video, and the rest will be in my Facebook post. So let's start off with law. One of the most esteemed subjects, but I would say that 80% of it is impractical and a distraction and just crap, distraction from the real world. It's usually not anchored to ethics, and if law was always concerned with ethics, it would be taught very, very differently. Instead, the law that is taught in schools these days is about power structures and suing and how to get detail that will eventually make things a bit fairer, but not look at the big picture of what people really need, such as their essentials in life. So the law itself is largely arbitrary and anthropocentric, and we can have all these theories and all these little bits and pieces of theory and stuff, but it doesn't teach us to be kind to all people, and that's something that I had to learn for myself. So law can be very repetitive, try and say the same thing in different ways, trying to get through to people's brains and it's often very overthinking, must say. I find it useful in mitigating a lot of my fears about society, studying law for a few years, but that was the main purpose of that. And it didn't go far beyond teaching me to be a practical person. And I go to the High Court and they still get it wrong. They still get all these things wrong about learning how to be kind to animals and that sort of thing. They still can't do that. So what's the purpose of studying law, really? Now, I also studied mathematics up to third year level. I never qualified with a degree, but I would also say that 80% of mathematics is unapplicable to the real world, especially pure mathematics, I guess. There's a lot of beauty in pure mathematics, and there's a lot of logic and coherence in it. And as a language, it's obviously very beautiful, but often surprisingly, it's just what it is, and it doesn't teach you to be kind to other people. It doesn't teach you to be grounded in the things that are most practical in life. Okay, well, I will admit that some forms of applied mathematics, such as finance, are interesting. Business and finance are interesting for people who want to make money and so on. And I find the statistics show that people who study finance often are more likely to become billionaires and millionaires in the future because they've studied that at a certain point. But the problem with studying finance and business is that many people don't remember also to study things which are good for their soul and connect to an idealizing about the world, such as, equality and compassion and a world which is completely ordered, such as living modeling, as I've espoused on my channel. Now, when people get to learn more about business, they learn also about things like leverage and exploitation of people, profiteering, and the normalization of greed. And that, unfortunately, is antithetical to ecology in so many ways. So we have the ecologists learning their stuff, we have the business people learning their stuff, and there's never a connection between the two. So that's why I'm a flexi socialist, because I acknowledge that business does have skills in it which are useful for practical real-world applications. But at the same time, I'm essentially socialist because I understand that the world should be as egalitarian and pro-egalitarian as possible. Now, unfortunately, about ecology is a really, really big buzzword, and I use it in my About Me page, in my biography, etc. But the thing about ecology is that it fails when people are unable to connect their individuality and lifestyles to that knowledge. Things like becoming a good person, and not necessarily worrying about zero waste all the time, but being really, really mindful of the way that we impact things with our big choices in life. So things like whether we decide to breed children or not, and that's obviously something that I've made a big decision about not to do that, because I know how ecologically damaging it is on the planet. But you'll find that most ecologists study things just for the sake of studying things, and they may understand in a very superficial way that we need to do something to help the planet. But David Attenborough, for example, he's not that practical minded. He knows a lot of things about animals and how they behave, but he's not a vegan, and he's not grounded in the things that I know and in practical terms. So he's not a practical person. So there are a few other subjects which I'd like to discuss in the Facebook post, which I'll link below. But generally speaking, education at the moment is only about 50% effective, and that unfortunately is a huge waste of time and resources on the planet. And our human power and our human energy could be used for such much better focus and drive and determination to do the things on this planet which are really, really, really important. So I hope you think about this. I hope you've learned something from this video, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.